Почитувани представници.
Distinguished representatives of the media, distinguished guests, distinguished citizens, now we will see through the conference of Prime Minister Kovachevski and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. After their statements, we will hear from the journalists. Prime Minister Kovachevski, distinguished President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, distinguished Euro Commissioner, Madam Johansson, distinguished ministers in the government. As I promised 10 days ago that I will invite the director of the Institute for Macedonian Language, Professor Gruevska, and the president of the Council for Macedonian Language, Professor Spasov. I did so. They were here present at the signing of the Frontex agreement, and they will be with us during this press conference. Distinguished ambassadors, distinguished members of the media, and distinguished citizens. I'm glad that today I stand next to you, President von der Leyen, and that we can talk about the future and the opportunities ahead of us. Today is a great day for North Macedonia and for the Macedonian people. Today, we signed the Frontex agreement in Macedonian language, without footnotes, without asterisk, and without any additions, without unclear formulations. Clear Macedonian language. The European Union, in July, but also in the recent period, and today, of course, has shown that it is a reliable partner by delivering on its promises. Before the first intergovernmental conference on 19th of July this year, President von der Leyen at the press conference said, "Dear Dimitar, I promise you that the Frontex agreement will be signed with North Macedonian into Macedonian language." Before that press conference, I promised this to the Macedonian citizens. She delivered, and I delivered. Today's signing of the Frontex agreement, the first official agreement signed between North Macedonia and the EU after the commencement of negotiations, is the true and first example of this promise. We signed this agreement into Macedonian language. There are no additions. There are no asterisks. And it is the first agreement that North Macedonia is signing with the EU in clear Macedonian language together with all other languages in the EU. This is the promise that I gave, and this is the promise that I kept. With this agreement, we will be able to jointly tackle illegal migration and to jointly respond to challenges, but this time from our territory together with Frontex forces. With today's act, we show the destructiveness of the megaphones who in front of this very building lied without conscience that this will never happen, that the Macedonian language will always have some footnote or some addition. These lies have failed, and the citizens today, for the umpteenth time, can see who is the credible partner that will take them on the European path, and who uses lies and manipulations to instill fear and insecurity, to undermine the trust in the institutions and the faith in Europe. Today, loud and clear, in official statements of all European leaders, of representatives of the international community, we can hear the precise use of the term Macedonian language. This is confirmed by President von der Leyen. The legislation is translated into Macedonian. Macedonian language is equally represented with all other European languages in the European Union. By signing this document, we are raising on top level the status of the official use of the Macedonian standard language. This act is what makes all of us, the citizens of North Macedonia, and especially us, the Macedonians, because in this way we are completing the actions of our predecessors for emancipation of the Macedonian language and culture on European level. If the language is our homeland and Macedonian language is recognized on equal footing among the European languages, proven by the Frontex agreement, and also the overall acquis, as I said, is being prepared to be translated into Macedonian, then after the NATO membership, with which we secured the territorial borders of our country, this now is the concrete recognition of the Macedonian language we expected and we secured with the commencement of negotiations with the EU. With the statesmanship decisions that we are making for the 5th year in a row, even today, we confirm and we ensure European and world recognition of the Macedonian language and Macedonian identity. I am convinced that Kovachevski would be proud today on this achievement of protection of our language and our language environment of our homeland, as he would say. Today, when we have protected the most important identity issues for me and my people, we can speak freely of what follows. Distinguished citizens, North Macedonia has made many decisive steps towards the EU, and we as a government have made difficult but bold statesmanship and visionary decisions for the state. It was not easy. These were difficult decisions for me, for the government, and for the citizens. They were serious compromise. But at the end of the day, someone had to make that decision because there is nothing more important than the future of our children and the European future of the state. After 17 years of waiting, we started negotiations that mean European future for the citizens with economic progress, social justice, and rule of law. And this, in my opinion, is the most patriotic act that a statesman can do today. It was not easy to reach this status. I personally took participation in the negotiations that enabled us the commencement of negotiations with the EU, and I tell you that it was the most difficult experience of my life. These negotiations were extremely difficult. In front of you, you have the members of the EU, the club that you want to join, and with whom you must show diplomacy, but also to protect your positions. And this is hard. It is not easy, both for the citizens and for me. If someone thought this was an easy task for me, they are wrong. I am a human being, citizen as any other of this country. It is normal to feel like that. All of us, even me. In the end, someone had to make a decision. This is a decision for the future of this and the future of the generations of our children. The selected concept, where with the heads up high as Macedonians with protected Macedonian language, we commenced negotiations with the EU, was a question of courage. When you're in my position as a prime minister, it is your obligation not to think only of yourself, but to think about everyone except for yourself. As difficult as it was sitting on the large table in Brussels with all great countries and our friends, one can understand where we actually belong. We belong to the EU. There is no alternative for this, nor someone in this country for 31 years has offered any alternative to the membership in the EU. I absolutely know that this road will not be easy. There will be obstacles, there will be challenges, and all of us together must deal with them. But in the end, on this road comes the great prize, and that is the EU membership, an objective that 31 years ago, all the citizens of this country left to all the governments who led this country. Because when this objective will be reached, the citizens of our country will live in a European state, they will be proud and they will be richer, as they want to be now. But then they will not leave their country, they will not go to the countries of the European Union, but they will live in a country that will be member of the European Union here at home in North Macedonia. With the first intergovernmental conference in July this year, we made a historic step and we officialized our determination for membership in the Union. With protected Macedonian language, without historical issues in the negotiation framework, with protected Macedonian identity, undisputed in the EU. Distinguished citizens, there is a difficult task in front of us, but we are ambitious in setting goals and we are moving fast on the European path. As a government, we demonstrated the political will for continuation of the reforms, working tirelessly for the bilateral screening that starts next month. The screening that is already underway will speed up reforms and in long term will Europeanize institutions, and this is direct benefit for our citizens. Our citizens live with the idea for the European Union for 30 years, and there is no one who is more aware that this process is not only laws and documents, but it is change of the way of thinking about society and processes, but also change in the way in which we improve the law and quality of life. That is why I believe that we have the support of the citizens, from the civic organizations, from the media, the business community, for the process of negotiations with the European Union. There is not a single person in this country that does not want this country to have Western economic standard and European institutions for better services for the citizens. All stakeholders, and especially the academia and the experts from the civil sector, know that the government has opened its doors for partnership approach in the negotiations, and they know that we do not have intention to lead these negotiations alone. We will do this together, united with all parties in this country. We made European and functional negotiation structure that will very fast provide results, having in mind that the screening will be intensive. With good preparation for fast and successful screening process, I believe that this will happen in 14 months. We need strong engagement by everyone, because this is not the task only of one government or of one party. This is task for all stakeholders in the country. That is why, again, I call upon the opposition in the assembly to unite for the future of this country. This refers to the negotiations with the European Union, but also to the constitutional changes that expect us after the completion of the screening process. Unfortunately, it also refers to the current behavior of the opposition. We cannot allow ourselves another report of the European Commission that will note that the opposition is blocking the European reforms in the assembly. We cannot allow ourselves for the government to work fast in favor of the EU, while the opposition to act as an anchor of destruction and opposite direction. The opposition owes the citizens to deblock and to work on reforms together with us, to work on reforms that will speed up negotiations with the EU so that we can become a full-fledged member state as soon as possible. It would be terrible if you block the road to the EU due to political games. I sincerely hope that we will be united for the future of our country and for our citizens. The European Union means more investments, more jobs, better paid jobs. We are not working tirelessly for the EU membership so that we can say that we are a member of the EU. We work for this full-fledged membership because we will create a better country for living. There is no other alternative to us except for the EU. And if the opposition does not understand this, then they literally play with the future of North Macedonia. Unity must come inside in the country so that we can apply it beyond the borders. All of us together in the European Union and outside the EU have serious challenges that we are facing, and without unity, we will not be able to tackle them. In Ukraine, there is still war that kills people every day in the most brutal way that we have seen on this continent in the 90s, on the Balkan, or during the Second World War. As with any other war, this too brings destruction, poverty, and hunger. North Macedonia stands and will continue to stand in support of Ukraine. War in Ukraine stimulated solidarity and unity of the European continent that we have not seen for many years, not only of all European countries towards Ukraine, but of all European countries among themselves in tackling the consequences that the war in Ukraine has caused over Europe and the world in general. Energy crisis united Europe beyond the borders of the Union. In Prague, I said, but I will reiterate this until the day we leave this crisis. we need to be energy independent, and only united can we tackle the challenges of lack of energy and food. I'm convinced that if the military aggression of Russia over Ukraine showed us the strength of the unity of the NATO alliance, here, in the middle of the energy and economic consequences of the war, we will see the force of the European Union. Shared energy projects as new sources of gas supply, as more cheaper energy, are of essential importance for North Macedonia. This includes the opportunities for becoming a regional hub for further transit and distribution of gas through the countries in the region, that is one of the most impacted one due to the way of electricity generation and economic condition of the countries due to global inflation. All of us together on the European continent stand before this challenge of the most difficult winter after the World War II, and our cooperation will help us to leave this crisis. And I'm convinced that we will use this challenge to speed the green and digital transition that will make us stronger, more independent, and more united than ever. As a government, we work day by day for the citizens, for no one to be left behind or forgotten in dealing with the lack of electricity or food. We will not allow a single citizen to deal alone, and we will overcome this crisis, all of us together, in the best possible way. The highest inflation rate in the last 50 years throughout whole Europe obliges us to joint approach to the crisis, and with our NATO and EU partners and with the countries from the region to act decisively and to undertake effective measures for leaving the crisis. I promise that we will do anything with the members of the government to supply sufficient heating and food for the winter. And we show this daily, and we undertake measures to protect the living standard of the citizens, but also the liquidity of the companies. As a government, we act fast and effective with the first set of measures of 400 million euros for alleviation of the price shock and protection of the living standard of the citizens. And we continue with the new package of measures for tackling the energy and price crisis, mostly for the most vulnerable categories of citizens. The anti-crisis measures in 2022 so far have reached 760 million euros. We'll continue with this anti-crisis flexibility and targeted reaction pursuant to the needs of the citizens and the companies. We count on our friends from the European Union. We count on our closest neighbors, with whom we have already agreed that we will act as one. We're committed to meeting our plan for securing resources, and most of all, electricity for the families, for the schools, for the hospitals, and for the enterprises. We're committed to energy transition of the country because we know that this is the future for energy independence, but also for protection of the planet. In the beginning, and that is why only during the mandate of my country, we have installed 27 megawatts photovoltaic power plants in the country, more than have been made for 11 years in total in the country. North Macedonia has resources, sun, water, soil. These are resources that can be used for our development. Distinguished and very dear President, we count on your support, on your leadership for unity in tackling the energy and price crisis. I am convinced that as North Macedonia leaves no one behind, leaves no citizens to tackle this crisis alone, the European Union will leave no country to deal this crisis alone. Our unity can only grow only if it becomes more resilient in tackling all challenges until the end of the war in Ukraine and after. I want to express my enormous gratitude in my own name and in the name of the citizens for the support and for the assistance you have been providing in conditions of world crisis. This support is great incentive for us to continue working on renewable resources of energy, energy connectivity, and infrastructure until reaching energy independence. I want to thank you for the macro-financial assistance that you have provided during the COVID crisis for our country, also for the inclusion of our Minister of Economy in all meetings that are being held on the level of the European Union for easier tackling of the energy crisis. Thank you. Thank you, President. Distinguished. Now I invite the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to address you.
Dear Prime Minister, dear Dimitar, ladies and gentlemen, it's so great to be back here in Skopje. And indeed, I vividly remember my last visit 4 months ago when I came to address the Parliament of North Macedonia here. And I also very clearly remember that at that day, as you can imagine, what we have promised. And yes, we have promised that if North Macedonia, the Parliament, is able to take the necessary steps, it would lead to the opening of accession negotiations. It would then start the screening process of the EU acquis without any delay. And above all, that we would fully respect your identity and your language, that is the Macedonian language. And I must say, dear Dimitar, it took a lot of leadership that you have shown and a lot of courage to your parliament from North Macedonia to cross that threshold. And I'm so glad that you did, because it led to that historic day of July when we finally opened accession negotiations. And, dear Prime Minister, as I promised, the screening of the acquis started immediately. And it is now firmly on track, and the negotiation process is gaining momentum, and there's very good work being done. And finally, indeed, on your language, I promised to you that we would get the Frontex agreement signed, translated into the Macedonian language, no footnote, no asterisks, on equal footing with all the 24 languages of the European Union. And today we delivered. We delivered, and as I said, there are 24 official languages in the European Union. I am deeply convinced it will not take too long, then we will have 25, because the Macedonian language is such a beautiful language. And I really want to thank the Commissioner Johansson for her tireless work on the agreement. And this agreement is not only very important because it strengthens our cooperation on migration, but also because it shows that there can be no doubt that the Macedonian language is your language, and we fully respect that. Now, North Macedonia is moving forward along the European path. And that is what our latest enlargement report also shows. We have just published this enlargement report, and I must really congratulate you. This is amazing to see how determined you're moving forward. You have strengthened your democracy, you have strengthened your rule of law, you've made progress in the reform of your justice system, you are developing a solid market economy that has already proven its resilience. So congratulations on the progress, on the success so far, and I know that you are, and listening to you, I'm deeply convinced that you are determined to keep up the good speed, the good pace, to move on the path towards the European Union. And I am very aware that you are doing all this against a very challenging backdrop. And that is Russia's brutal war against our friends and neighbors in Ukraine. This war is bringing cruelty and destruction to the Ukrainian people and is sending shockwaves through the entire world. As we all know and see, Russia is using energy, for example, as a weapon, and it is heavily manipulating the energy market. This results in rising energy prices and in problems in security of supply. And yes, North Macedonia has been affected too. But rest assured, we are feeling the same pressure, but we will not give in, not a single centimeter. Rest assured that what we show in the European Union, solidarity and unity, also means solidarity and unity with North Macedonia, because we are in this together, and this means that we will solve this crisis and we will overcome this crisis together. We will keep supporting our friends in Ukraine, and we will be very strong and determined to make sure that here in the European Union there is the solidarity and the unity that we need. My message today to the citizens of North Macedonia is very clear. The European Union is by your side. We are in this together, and we will go through this together, and we will overcome this crisis together and move towards a better future. We are putting forward now an energy package, a support package for the whole Western Balkan. It begins with grants, 80 million grants here for North Macedonia as immediate budget support. It will help address the impact of the high energy prices on your citizens and on your businesses. And we will finalize this by the end of the year so that you can get the funding already in January. But of course, more will come. For example, there are 500 million grants for the whole region to invest in what is so necessary now to get our independence, to invest in energy connections, to invest in energy efficiency, and of course to invest in renewable energy. We have spoken about it, that we need to be self-sufficient with energy. So, for example, the renewable energy that is homegrown, that creates good jobs here, and that makes us independent of Russian fossil fuels. This support and more financial support will be channeled under the so-called Economic and Investment Plan. As you know, the investment plan is already at work, with investments in wind parks, for example, in solar power plans. I was very happy to hear that you are planning to intensify this work. And with new gas interconnection between your country and Serbia and Kosovo that are planned also. So finally, it will also enable you to participate in the European joint procurement for pipeline gas and LNG. We have decided in the European Council that we want to purchase, to buy gas on the global market together, because this strengthens our purchasing power. We invite you, North Macedonia, to join us, to be with us, so that we go to the market together. And of course, all the decisions we have taken in the last days, the legal proposals that we have taken to reduce the prices of gas in the European Union, but more importantly, the prices of electricity, you are benefiting, of course, from that too, because we are in one energy union. And this means whatever we do it together, as I said, unity and solidarity. Dear Dimitar, it was touching to listen to you. It was moving. The people of North Macedonia and you and your government and many, many, many people in this country have shown so much commitment to European Union values. And therefore, I'm deeply convinced, indeed, that you will move forward on your path to membership. You deserve to move forward on the path to membership. It was touching for me to listen to you, what you said about young people in North Macedonia. And yes, they are dreaming of Europe, but I am also deeply convinced they are dreaming of North Macedonia in the European Union, a place where they want to shape the future of North Macedonia. You can rely on us, and we know that we can rely on you. I know that you still have a way ahead of you, but you are able, the way I got to know you and the determination that I've seen, and this parliament I've spoken to, the people of North Macedonia that I have met, I am deeply convinced that you are able to make the dream of your young people come true in North Macedonia, because let me tell you, I'm deeply convinced that Europe, the European Union, is not complete without North Macedonia. We want to have you with us. We are friends, we are partners, and one day we're going to be in one European Union. Thank you very much. Blagodaram.
Благодарам. Почитувани, следуваат новинарските прашања. Следуваат 4 прашања, 2 за председателот на владата и 2 за председателката. Повели Тамара. Само микрофонот да молам.
Добар ден, Тамара Венчаровска, Тилма телевизија, има прашање до
Tilma TV. Question to the President von der Leyen. You did not mention the constitutional amendments Do you have interpretation? You did not mention constitutional amendments and what was said in the report for Macedonia and the blockage in the assembly. Did you hear something this evening from the president of the government? What is the way to overcome this and to access these constitutional amendments, having in mind the attitude of the opposition? And directly to you, how will you respond to the ultimatum of the Macedonian opposition that they request declaration or guarantee from the EU so that they give their green light that without the guarantees on your part, they will not vote in favor of the constitutional amendments?
Of course, we have in our bilateral spoken about this very important topic of the constitutional amendment. And, you know, I am deeply convinced that the North Macedonians finally will come together, will form a majority that makes it possible to vote positively to the constitutional amendment. You have managed so much. You have gone through so much. You have been so successful in the way forward that I'm deeply convinced that here in the country, in North Macedonia, you will find the convincing arguments to finally understand that it is everyone's responsibility to participate or to contribute that this country is moving forward. I was speaking of the young people who have a dream, and I call on all politicians to make this dream of the young people a reality.
Продолжаваме понатаму, второ прашање. Јана, канал 5.
We continue. Question? Question to Prime Minister Kovachevski. President von der Leyen mentioned the grants for tackling the energy crisis, 80 million euros as urgent budget assistance. So I would like to hear something more about the form, how these assets will be repurposed towards the end of January. Yes, we talked with President of the European Commission. We talked on the level of European commissioners on finance and European commissioners on energy. And during these talks, we had the Minister of Economy and the Minister of Finance. The first tranche of assistance, as President von der Leyen said, is 80 million euros grant that will be used for budget support in the country till the end of the year. In the next 2 months, we will complete the formalities, and as of January, we will be able to use these funds for budget support. This means that these funds in January, February, and March, the most difficult months, will be used for tackling the energy crisis for purposes foreseen by the budget with the budget 2023 that will be soon accepted by the government and will be sent to the parliament. And this will not be the single assistance because, as the president said, we're considering new assistance, not only in grants, but also in regional assistance for funding capital projects, for gas connectivity, and for securing new sources of electricity supply. And here I mean large projects planned in the region for construction of gas power plants and other energy power plants for stabilization of the generation of electricity in the whole region of Western Balkan. Furkan, third question.
You just respect ours. So, Madam President, we all know that the biggest problem of our society is crime and corruption. How this process should change the mentality of our Balkan officials, to change the mentality of Balkan politicians, to take action and to make real change when it's needed and not just to adopt laws, because our Prime Minister knows exactly what I'm talking about.
So the accession process and the negotiations in the accession process has very clear steps on the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the fight against corruption. And any country that ever joined the European Union underwent these processes, did the reforms. So these will be the reforms for every country that is in the accession process for the European Union. And this is a constant process to uphold the rule of law, not only for the countries that want to join the European Union, but also within the European Union. We have a rule of law report, for example, once a year within the European Union to over and over strengthen the institutions that are providing the rule of law or that are fighting, for example, organized crime or that are fighting the corruption. So North Macedonia, like other countries, will undergo these reforms, will be stronger. You have done a lot already. You have been working intensively on that topic. I recommend the report, the enlargement report that was just published. But of course, there's still a way to go.
Последно прашање.
Горија Ивановски, Euronews. And the President, speaking in the context of the Frontex agreement, do you expect a new wave of migrants on the southeastern flank of the EU from the crisis region, including Ukraine? Thank you.
Including?
Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. So, we are in a very serious situation, and we see the atrocious brutality and cruelty with which Russia is attacking civil infrastructure, with the clear aim in Ukraine to cut off men, women, children, of heating, of water, of electricity, with the winter coming. And we see these vicious attacks on, for example, housing and civil infrastructure like kindergarten, hospitals, schools, you name it. And we are aware of the fact that Russia tries everything, not only to terrorize the Ukrainian people and to paralyze that country, but also to push people out of the Ukrainian people out of Ukraine. So there's a twofold approach. First of all, there's a strong support from all of us what military equipment is concerned for Ukraine to defend itself and to protect its citizens. Second, as much as possible, we help immediately with, to repair the infrastructure, to care for shelter, for example, and to make sure that the people who lost everything, the internally displaced people, have for the winter the support that is necessary. But yes, we are also ready and preparing in case that even more refugees from Ukraine are coming. I must say I'm deeply touched by the experience how citizens opened their hearts and their homes to Ukrainian refugees. In the course of this atrocious war, more than 8 million people have come to the European Union. Many have gone back, I must also say, to Ukraine to help bring that country forward. But at the moment being, we have for around about 4 million Ukrainians that are asking for temporary protection, which is granted to them. And therefore, it is an enormous challenge, but also an enormous show of friendship and solidarity of the people of this country, of other countries in the European Union, in Europe itself, to give all the support that is possible and necessary for the Ukrainian refugees. My message is very clear. Whatever atrocious tactic Putin is trying, we will stand together and we will not let it happen that our friends in Ukraine will be put under even more pressure. We will stand together with solidarity and we will make sure that Ukraine will prevail.
Да ви благодарам на прашањето. Прво, Северна Македонија уште од првиот ден.
Thank you for your question. As of the first day of the Russian aggression of the Ukraine, North Macedonia, as a government but also as citizens, stated that we condemn this attack of Russia over Ukraine because it is an attack over the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the country. It is an attack over innocent people, over civil targets. It is an attack over civilization benefit of Europe, and that is the peace and progress. And Russia attacked this. And as the president said, the infrastructure is now the target of Russia. Water supply, energy supply, all in order to put the Ukrainian population under pressure. However, the Ukrainians will not stand alone. You saw that I signed an agreement for free trade with food with the Ukrainian Prime Minister on the margins of the meeting of the European political community in Prague. And we're constantly communicating, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is communicating with Ukraine regarding the enabling of whatever we can do, considering our capacities, to assist the Ukrainian citizens. And we're doing so, and we will continue to do so. Our country has fewer refugees from Ukraine. They're here, and they have all the rights enabled with our decisions and the conventions that we have signed regarding the migration waves from Asian and African countries. I believe that our Ministry of Interior is doing its work impeccably. All our citizens witnessed that at the border we often saw policemen from the Czech Republic, from Hungary, and this is because we hadn't signed the Frontex agreement. And I want to thank them that until today, even today, policemen from the Czech Republic, from Slovakia, from other countries of the European Union were at our disposal and stood on our borders to prevent large migrant waves. And this gratitude I express on behalf of all our institutions and all our citizens. But as of today, North Macedonia is part of the Frontex agreement, and the last obstacle during these years has been surpassed because the Frontex agreement is signed in clear Macedonian language, and as of today, our policemen with Frontex markings will be able to protect the border regarding the illegal migrant crossing of it. Thank you, President of the Government. Thank you, President of the Commission. This is the end of the press conference. Thank you for your attention.